Welcome once again, everybody. It's Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It is September 6, 2019, the end of another week here at the Marijuana Times. Find us at marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab at marijuanatimes.org to find the show. Also, a lot of great articles there as well covering the cannabis community, industry, and beyond. That is marijuanatimes.org. Today, we're talking about President Trump and his thoughts, or his continuing thoughts on marijuana law reform. Also, a new poll out of Florida on just how well recreational or adult use legalization, a ballot measure, may do. And a Massachusetts mayor has been arrested and charged with many things. And he's been accused of many things, and it's just a very, very odd story. Talk about all that coming up. First, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free with Natureside. Don't use harmful chemicals on what you are growing. Be regulatory compliant. Don't use banned pesticides. There's a lot of things you shouldn't do when it comes to growing cannabis or anything else that people are going to be ingesting, really. But there is one thing you should do, and that, as you probably already guessed, is to check out Natureside, nature-side.com. If you didn't guess, I'm not doing my job. If you didn't guess what was coming next, nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. This first story by yours truly at marijuanatimes.org is President Trump warming up to marijuana legalization. Last Friday, Trump, he makes his little remarks when he's going somewhere, getting on a helicopter or whatever. He was asked by Steve Nelson, who's the White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, about cannabis. Nelson's question was along the lines of talking about studies that show that marijuana helps things like opioid abuse and whether there'd be any movement when it comes to the federal level on that issue. And basically Trump said, he's reiterated what he's reiterated before and said before, is that he wants the states to decide the issue, which is great. I mean, that's the best we can hope for from Trump. Trump's never going to be Mr. Free the weed man, civil liberties bro dude. That's not him. We need him to be the guy who, if a marijuana related bill comes on his desk and he feels that it pushes power back to the states over the issue as opposed to the federal government, he signs that bill. That's the guy we need. What happens after 2020 in the elections? Who knows? If we got to deal with him for another 4 years, hopefully that'll be enough to get things done. Obviously, it looks like now, when you look at polls and things like that, that he doesn't have much of a chance at being reelected. But may I remind you that he didn't have much of a chance of being elected in the first place. I mean, he was down, 5 points on election day, and 98% odds that he was going to lose. Just craziness. I remember sitting here, right here in this place, 3 years ago, November 2016, writing up my election coverage and election results of what was going on in the marijuana world on election night 2016, and there was a TV over here. It's new TV now, but it was another TV here over my shoulder, and I was listening basically and watching some of the presidential results that came in over the night and started coming in from Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and Ohio and Florida, and oh my God, Donald Trump is president, which is still crazy when you think about it. But here we are. So to say that, he's not going to be reelected, we'll see. I think we have to plan for that possibility. And hopefully he'll be a guy, if so, that signs things and gives power back to the states. Obviously, if a Democrat gets in, there may be a better chance of them being pro-marijuana law reform. Although there are some of the older Democrats that are not as keen on the devil's lettuce, if you will. They remember going to see Reefer Madness in theaters. You know what I'm talking about. The really, really old people on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. And it may be offensive to some of you. I don't care. Especially in this day and age. I know. I'm sorry. But what am I going to do? You'll notice there's a common denominator with these people. They're very, very old. I spent decades in Congress. Old. People have known my name since the 1970s. Old. They are not, in general, on board with marijuana law reform. So we have better luck with someone younger on that score. We'll see what happens. A guy like Joe Biden is not exactly known for being, gun-ho, civil liberties dude. Obviously, Bernie Sanders is an exception to that rule as far as super old people being against marijuana law reform. He's one of the rare exceptions of the super old who are on board. That's great. I don't know who's going to win the Democratic nomination, but a lot will hinge on that. As far as Trump, stay right there, man. Let the states decide. Cool. That's the position we need you in. Just when you get a bill in front of your face, hopefully, then remember that. Remember you said that and thought that, did that, whatever. This next story is from FloridaPolitics.com. Floridians overwhelmingly support legalizing recreational marijuana. Top pollster finds. According to a new survey conducted by Fabrizio Lee and Associates, one of the most respected public research firms in the nation, according to Florida Politics, the survey found 2/3 of likely Florida voters polled favored legalizing the use of marijuana for adults age 21 and older. Of those, 45% said they strongly favored legalization, and 22% said they somewhat favored it. So that's a pretty good split, 45 and 22. Only 29% opposed legalization. Sets solid groundwork on 3 proposed amendments seeking ballot inclusion that all would require 60% of the vote to be approved in Florida because of the constitutional amendment thing. If those of you who followed medical marijuana votes in Florida in 2014 and 2016, you're well aware of the 60% threshold. This article is interesting. It goes into messaging and how certain messages polled well, other messages when it comes to legalization polled poorly among people. For instance, respondents were told about the burden placed on law enforcement by enforcing marijuana laws, including that legalization, quote, allows the courts and police to focus more time on serious crimes such as gang activity, violent crimes, robbery, and sexual predators. Asked about that messaging, 67% of respondents said they would be more likely to support legalization. So it's a pretty interesting article if you want to go check it out. It is linked in the description of this video, as are all stories that I talk about. Now, come to the story of Jacil Correa II, the embattled mayor of Fall River, Massachusetts. He has been arrested for extorting marijuana vendors for 6-figure bribes. Those of you who don't know what that means, it's $100,000 or more. This is a very interesting article. Again, if you want to check it out, it's linked in the description of this video. He was arrested on Friday on new federal extortion charges for allegedly operating a scheme to help marijuana vendors get approval to operate in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes. I'm going to stress again that all of these things are alleged. They've been charged, whatever. They have not been proven in a court of law. But prosecutors say that Correa agreed to sign non-opposition letters in return for significant 6-figure payments from 4 marijuana vendors looking to open businesses in the city of nearly 90,000, about an hour's drive south of Boston. The letters are required to obtain a license to operate a marijuana business in Massachusetts, where, of course, cannabis is legal. Correa said, I'm not guilty of these charges. I've done nothing but good for the great city of Fall River, me and my staff and my team. I'm going to continue to do great things for our citizens. Now, this next paragraph, they kind of list some of the other things he's been accused of. This is my favorite, maybe my favorite sentence ever in a story that I've talked about on this show. I don't know. I have to go back and look. The Democratic mayor is also accused of extorting $3,900 in cash and a $7,500 to $12,000 value Batman Rolex watch from a property owner in exchange for activating the water supply to his building. Allegedly extorted a Batman Rolex worth in excess of $7,500, upwards of $12,000, in order to turn on the water to their building. Man, that's some old school corruption. Alleged corruption. Hardcore stuff. 4 others, including former chief of staff Genevieve Andrade, were also charged with federal crimes. Andrade faces federal extortion, theft, and bribery, and false statement charges in connection with the scheme. What crap. Antonio Costa, Hildegard Camara, and David Herbert were charged separately with extortion, conspiracy, extortion, and false statements after allegedly lying to federal agents about their roles in helping Correa with his scheme. Wow. It marks the second time in less than a year that Correa, first elected in 2015, has been indicted. He was arrested in October on charges he defrauded investors of an app company he co-owns by pocketing 64% of their payments to bankroll what prosecutors called his lavish lifestyle, quote unquote, and political career. He's pleaded not guilty to those charges as well. He now faces 24 total charges, 13 from last year's arrest and 11 new charges, including bribery, extortion conspiracy, extortion, aiding and abetting, wire fraud, and filing false tax returns. Ma'am, again, all this is alleged, but whatever you say about this dude, he's 27, he's a go-getter. He's getting things done. Can you imagine the amount of energy it takes to do all this? My mind wobbles at the idea of how much time and energy it took to put all this together. And of course, it's going to fall apart. No human being's capable of all that. All that takes like a mafia family to get done. This guy's got a couple people in his office. They're bribing and extorting and like saying, "Oh, give me the Batman Rolex, buddy, or I won't turn your water on, and you end up with a horse's head in your bed." It's crazy. Alleged. Crazy. I don't know. And that takes an incredible amount of energy. But a lesson about biting off more you can chew. If even half that stuff is true, biting off more than you can chew, even if half of that stuff is true, that's a lot. That's a lot. When did he have time to be mayor? I don't know what's going on in Fall City or Fall Rivers or whatever the city's called. I've already forgot. I'm sorry. I'll scroll back up. Fall River. Was he being mayor at all? Somebody's water got turned on. I guess that was some progress. By the way, I did not know until today that they have Batman Rolexes. That's an interesting development in my life. I feel like I've been missing something, but now I know. And to be quite frank, I want a Batman Rolex. The price tag of $7,500 is a bit outside my range, but it's a goal for the future. I will have a Batman Rolex. Maybe that one. I would like to have that one. That has some collector's item value now. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. Go check us out on marijuanatimes.org, also YouTube, Apple Podcasts if you want the audio version of the show. We're here 5 days a week. Thank you for sharing and liking and commenting and all that stuff and spreading the truth about cannabis with the show. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you to all of you for watching and listening today, and we'll see you next week right here on Cannabis News.